again since we had some audio issues. So welcome to the Satur-AMA. I'm Victoria Mole from Contempo Coding. I am here to talk a little bit about questions that you may have on medical coding and the medical coding industry. I'm gonna probably not do this every Saturday, but hopefully one Saturday a month I can come in, live stream, and talk to you guys about your questions on coding, the industry. Probably not so much how to code cases because I think it might not be very exciting. Thank you so much, Gwen. It may be not very exciting to watch me actually like sit and research things because the research process tends to take a little while and not very exciting to watch. But I wanted to start with a couple of questions that were submitted from Stacy. She sent them via some comments on the channel. So Stacy asked, can you tell us about your schooling, your certifications, why you chose those, and then if I got a coding job right away or if it took me a little while? So this is actually a great question. I just hung up my coding certifications and things yesterday. Like I just last night hung up my certifications. They've been sitting in a cube for quite a period of time because I just bought this house that I'm in now in February and set up this office with the purpose of not only it being an office but a studio so that I can do things like video and webinars and host courses and classes and that sort of thing. And I had been working remotely part-time for half of my work week and started transitioning into working full-time. It just made more sense at the time because I was traveling for provider education and it was easier for me to leave from home than it was from the office I was in, which was in the inner city. So inner cities tend to be kind of difficult to get in and out of at a fast pace. So I was working from the joke amongst my friends was, you know, oh, they all wanted to work from home too. They were very jealous. And then 2 weeks later, the pandemic forced everyone to work from home. And they were all like, hey, Victoria, you know I was joking with you that I wanted to work from home too, but you didn't really need to create an entire pandemic to make that happen. So I was very fortunate that I was at least already set up for that. But the little finishing touches, it's been taking a while. So I can tell you, someone was very excited recently to see that I was a graduate of Reading Community College. I'm a very big advocate of local community colleges. So I don't think you're usually supposed to do this on live streams, but I did. I'm going to move my camera so you can see right up on there is at the very top of my closet is my diploma from Reading Community College. So I am a community college girl. And I went to Reading Community College for their billing. This is probably why you're not supposed to move your camera. For their billing and insurance specialist program. It's not an associate's degree program because at the time they did not have an associate's degree program. It was just like a career kind of, almost like a technical school program. And that's what I went through. And Reading Community College, I think, was good at that program. They still have that program. As far as I know, it's going still very successfully. And most community colleges have very similar programs, and there are also now many that partner with what they call Ed2Go that I believe offers a similar type of program, like a medical billing, medical coding type of education plan that you can go through. So that's one I always recommend, that if you have something you can get to through your local community college, that's usually pretty budget friendly. And it looks a little bit more professional on a resume versus just getting a certification, because if for any reason you would lose that certification or, let it lapse, or you would decide not to get in coding, you would still at least have that diploma or degree on your resume. The other thing I can tell you is I have quite a few coding certifications. I don't know that I want to move my camera again now to show you, but I have... Let's see, I have my certified professional coder, certified risk adjustment coder, I have my auditing certification, I have a specialty in plastic and reconstructive surgery, and then I am a approved instructor through the AAPC, which is kind of considered a credential. I will tell you that I wanted to mention, because I did talk about Reading Community College, I am representing today. I do go to the Reading, Pennsylvania chapter of the AAPC. I actually am president of the Allentown chapter, but I'm kind of wedged in between two of them, so I'm very fortunate that I get to go to two local coding chapters. So the reason that I got those certifications is I think that the CPC is the most popular medical coding credential. I think it will widen the most job opportunity you can have as a medical coder because it's the one that is sought after the most. I think there's likely more jobs in professional coding than there are in inpatient coding. And I think that if you're not sure about what credential you want to get, I think the CPC is a great just starting point because it's going to cast a very wide net as far as opportunities. I'll have people tell me like, I want to get 2 certifications at once, in which case I would suggest getting your CPC, Certified Professional Coder, and the CPB, which is the Medical Billing Certification. And in that case, you will cast a very wide net because if you can't get a job in coding right away, which does happen a lot, you can get a job then in medical billing and then work your way up to a coding position. I actually did not work directly as a coder for probably a year or 2 until I was in the industry. So I finished my schooling in the medical billing and insurance specialist at Reading Community College in 2007 and was given an internship at one of the local hospitals. That internship then led to a job. This was a time in the industry where almost every independent practicing physician was bought up by a large healthcare institution. And because so many of them were bought up, they needed a lot of support staff. So they were in a big hiring craze at the time, and I got picked up right off my internship because they had already trained me and I was already proving that I was doing very well at my job. About a year after I finished that schooling was when I got my CPC. So the organization that I was in offered to pay anyone in the revenue cycle that wanted to, oh, my audio's low. Okay, hold on, I'm going to turn my audio up a little bit. I hope this is better for you guys. There we go. So once I hope that's not too high. So once I got into that program, so the community college, finished that, got into the local hospital. The local hospital said that I could get my CPC through them. They were brought in an independent instructor to teach anyone in the revenue cycle who wanted to get their CPC certification, and that once you obtained it and you passed that exam, they would reimburse you. So I had to pay out of pocket initially for all of the materials and things for that instructor to teach us the CPC prep course, which I believe was around 60 or 80 hours worth of educational time. And after that, I had gotten my CPC, which actually was a CPCA, the apprenticeship, because if you don't have 2 years of experience, you are considered an apprentice until you either get 2 years of experience or meet certain criteria. Some of those criteria are if you have 80 contact hours through an approved instructor, or if you have do the Practicode. So technically you can get your certification as a CPC, go through the Practicode, and then go, if you had your education through an approved instructor where you got those 80 contact hours of education through them, that will constitute 2 years of experience and remove your apprenticeship status. There has been some talk in the AAPC. I know certain people kind of want to abolish the apprenticeship status. I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon, and I'm sure if it does, it's going to be quite a considerable process for that to happen. So after I got my medical coding, my CPC certification in professional coding, provider-based coding, I got certified in auditing. Auditing at the time was a very new credential, so I believe it was around 2010 or so that credential came out, and I saw it advertised in Healthcare Business Monthly, and I'd always had an interest in medical auditing and wanted to advance myself in the career, so I thought it would be a great idea to get that auditing certification. And one of the questions I got asked a lot by my coworkers when I obtained that auditing certification was, did they give you more money? And no, it wasn't like a one-to-one match. I didn't go from coder to auditor or to coder 3 or any kind of additional monetized incentive to get that auditing credential, but it opened up a lot more doors. So I was able to eventually get a senior coding specialist position because it was very impressive that I had that auditing credential and that I had published some articles in Healthcare Business Monthly. So that's, I think, one of the big questions that I get a lot is that, are those credentials going to mean that you get a higher pay right away? And no, it doesn't. But what it does is it provides more opportunity for growth and for you to grow into more higher paying positions and to grow into potentially some better jobs. And then there are organizations that do structure differently, that they'll have like a coder 1, coder 2, or a coding assistant versus a coding specialist. And as you grow and develop more certifications, then it can potentially mean that you get bumped up to a higher position, which can then also result in higher pay. But usually it's not an immediate thing. So another question that came through, did I have to work in-house prior to being remote? So this is kind of interesting. When I started in medical coding, one of the things I wanted to do immediately was work remotely. Like, that was the reason I got into medical coding, was so that I could work from home. But once I got out there and was doing my internship, I really liked working in the environment. I liked working in RevCycle. I've worked the majority, actually, of my career in a central billing office, meaning the entire office was just staff doing billing, revenue cycle type of work. With that said, you know, it's funny how things turn around. I was probably working in coding for, I would say, 10 years before I started regularly working from home. And by regularly, I don't mean every single day, but maybe 2 days a week. And it was probably 13 years until I started going fully remote, because I just started going fully remote earlier this year. So other questions I get asked, some people have asked me very recently about the E&M certification and whether they think that is worth pursuing right now. So the E&M certification, I'll say this about it, is, you know, E&M is going to change a lot in a couple of months. So the tests are probably not yet updated for some of that information that's going to change in 2021. And while I don't like to discourage anyone from wanting to go for any sort of credential, I would say that if it was me, I would probably wait until a little further into 2021 to make sure that everything is consistent in the exam, so that I'm not worrying if maybe the exam might ask a question and if it's going to be based off of AMA guidance or maybe some sort of different CMS interpretation, or if there may even be a delay in between, you know, maybe CMS having updated something and the exam itself hasn't been updated to that specificity yet, to that new guideline. Hey, Lillian Green, thank you so much for tuning in today for the live stream. So yeah, if you guys are here today and you're with me on the live stream, feel free to ask me any questions in the chat. I'm going to be here talking today about some of the coding questions that I usually get, and if you have any, I will be certainly happy to answer them. And make sure you give this video a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. That does really help support me and the channel, because I need to have the capability to make more content, and there's no purpose of making content without all of you out there that have been watching it and commenting about how helpful it is. So one of the other questions I asked about, someone asked about the CPC exam versus the exam review, and is the exam review worth the extra cost in addition to getting your CPC training package. So the CPC reviews you can actually sometimes get through your local chapters. So I always recommend that if you're looking for like a review class, like especially if you're someone that maybe took medical coding classes a couple years ago and you need a refresher before you sit for your certification, but you don't want to go through an entire other course, check some of your local chapters, and even if maybe they're not super close to you, they might let you sit in on their CPC review class, because those are usually paid, but they're paid at a much lower cost. They might charge you like $25, $30, or $40 for a review class, and that will help get you ready if you're someone who's had that lapse and is just now looking to get back into getting certified. Someone asked me if, Tony's asking if the CCA exam is much harder than the CPC exam, and would you know what the difference is other than inpatient ICD-10 PCS? So I believe the CCA, Certified Coding, is it a associate, something like that, through AHIMA. I'm not super familiar with that. I do believe that that is the one that is their inpatient coding, correct? Because the CCSP is their professional or provider-based coding certification through AHIMA. So that would have a lot more inpatient coding, a lot more ICD-10 PCS, and probably I would assume DRG work in it. From my standpoint, I don't know a lot about inpatient coding, so for me personally, it would be a lot harder. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard the AHIMA certifications are harder than some of the AAPC ones. Everyone has their opinions on one or the other. One other thing I will mention is either of them, honestly, AAPC or AHIMA, are going to be hard. I think it's almost like a 50-50 pass-fail rate for the AAPC exams, and I feel like I don't know the exact statistics for AHIMA, but I'm thinking they're kind of along the same lines. So Lillian says, I just want to say thank you so much for your info, podcast appearances, and those op reports. Yes, so I'm hoping to do some more case studies, and that's actually a great segue. And I'm definitely learning more about making sure that the cameras look appropriate so that you can see more in the book and the clarity that you need so that you can follow along. So I said I was going to have an announcement today, and I do. I'm very excited to announce today that I have been talking for a while about the courses that I offer. Like right now I teach risk adjustment, and I have some webinars and things that I offer as well. And people are finding me on YouTube and asking a lot, like, Victoria, do you teach the CPC class? I want to take classes through you because I enjoy the content that you make. And I feel so bad, but I'm having to turn everyone down because I'm like, no, I don't currently teach CPC, but I will be soon. And I'm very happy to announce that as of yesterday, I did sign to license the materials through the AAPC so that I can teach the CPC curriculum. Now, having said that, it's not going to be an overnight switch that I can turn on and start teaching the CPC class. Actually, yesterday, I started going through some of the slides just through the first chapter and just kind of tweaking them to make sure that they're consistent with the type of content that I usually like to put out, and then adding some additional examples in and narrating some of the notes that I want to make sure I cover when I start having classes for that. And it took me probably an hour and a half, 2 hours just to do the slides for chapter 1. So having said that, what my hope is that by the end of September, maybe early October, I will be able to have a CPC class started. My plan is to do a maybe 12-week course, have that go out, and then you can tune in weekly with Zoom sessions. Everything will drop into your courses, like here's the on-demand information, and then we'll meet at class and discuss all that information, go over case studies, go over homework, and then also offer an on-demand thing, but that's a little bit cheaper, but then it won't have the live classes to it. So until I get everything tweaked so that it is more consistent with the way that I instruct, that will be hopefully coming out, like I said, end of September, probably more like early October. I've had instructors, and just to talk about this a little bit, I do pay licensing fees to the AAPC for their material. So there's two ways you can go about teaching medical coding. You can either license materials through someone who's developed some sort of curriculum, which means you have to pay them for that content they created because it took them a long time to create that content, or you can create your own. And I would imagine it would take me probably months to create my own medical coding program from scratch, which why it's a little easier to just become a certified instructor through the AAPC and just license that material. I think some people don't always really understand the fact that books and practice exams and study guides are copyrighted, just like in the same way that the movie Star Wars is copyrighted. So I can't just take Star Wars and make a copy of it and give it out to all of my friends, or stream the movie Star Wars on YouTube. Even if I'm offering it for free, they still have those copyrights. It can't be released by anyone other than the people who own those copyrights or have licensed maybe to pay. I'm blanking on who owns Star Wars right now. Disney. To pay Disney licensing fees and say, hey, we want to use up some chunks of Star Wars, but we're going to pay you in order to do that for that material that you have. So that's what I'm hoping to do. Hopefully October is when I will start teaching CPC classes. So I will also be doing the review classes as well. I'm not sure yet on the timeline as far as that, because the review classes are pretty extensive as well. So thank you everyone for coming into the chat today. If you have any more questions, just let me know, because I only have like 1 or 2 left on my list. I did want to keep this kind of to a short Q&A and announcement today. Medical terminology. So I've had a lot of people request recommendations for learning medical terminology. I currently am looking into that myself for vendors on how to teach medical terminology through my website or through on-demand classes or through live classes, I guess you could say, via Zoom. So more to come on that if you are someone who wants to get into the medical terminology stuff right away, because you're like, oh, I want to become a medical coder, but first I have to learn MedTerm. I would suggest getting some of the flashcards that you can buy on Amazon. They're usually pretty reasonable. And then there's like a medical terminology for dummies book on Amazon you can purchase too, as well as searching here on YouTube. There are some free courses that you can just learn for medical terminology. And granted, they're not going to be as advanced as something as you would get probably in a paid course, but if you're looking for something budget friendly, that's a good opportunity. Or you could go and check again, your community colleges and your local tech schools sometimes have those outsourced like Ed2Go or on-demand courses that you can buy. And if you're just doing MedTerm, that might be a cheaper course to just buy a la carte if they'll let you in to do just that. So I have a question here. Thanks for the content, but some advice. Doing my reading for my CPC, but I feel my head is empty. You know, that's one of the things, and I feel that way sometimes about the guidelines. It takes a lot of interpretation to go through those guidelines. And I would suggest, particularly with the guidelines, because they're so very technical. Set goals, set small, reasonable goals with when you want to go through the guidelines. And really maybe section them out. Say, I'm just going to go through chapters 1 and 2 today and just really look over them and master them. And the thing I always say about medical coding is not about knowing all of the answers. It's not always about memorizing the guidelines, but knowing where to find them. So I personally don't know and can't recite all of the guidelines that we have for sepsis coding, because sepsis coding is complicated. But I know that there is a guideline for sepsis coding. So if I'm looking at something that involves sepsis, I just need to know where that guideline is for sepsis so that I can refer back to it and make sure that I'm assigning the right code. So sometimes it's not necessarily just memorizing all of the guidelines, but just knowing, being familiar with them, so that when you go, oh yeah, I'm coding something for diabetes, and let me quick check my diabetic coding guidelines to make sure that I'm sequencing correctly. So yeah, those are my recommendations. So if you're having a hard time following your timetable, I mean, you just have to commit. You just have to do it. And sometimes you can fall behind. That's okay. We all fall behind, especially now things are going crazy with those of us that have children in school. And my school's less than 2 weeks away for me. I still am not 100% sure what's going on if my kid is or is not enrolled in a virtual academy. Jenny's saying, would it make sense to take your E&M course now or wait until the 2021 changes? If you're talking specifically about the course that I have, the E&M course, it is, the course that I offer online is a compare and contrast. So it's here are our current E&M guidelines, which are going to be continued still for our inpatient setting, our skilled nursing facility, everything but outpatient coding. And then we go into the changes for the outpatient coding. So that's actually something you should probably, if you're thinking about taking it, take it now, because it's going to show you what those differences are and talk to you about what of the E&Ms are going to change and what of the ones are going to stay on the same old structures that we have with the E&M guidelines. So we go almost like start to finish off our current guidelines for E&M, score out some notes, and then we also score out the same notes in the course on the future guidelines, the 2021 changed guidelines, because that way you can see like if something scored out a certain way now and is going to change starting 2021, and start getting your mindset ready for how that is going to impact things. So yeah, I think that's a great course to start considering. I really need to get a haircut. I keep touching my hair on my face while we're going through the live stream. So that would be a great course to take. I do also want to mention I have the framework out. I know I haven't put out a free CEU course in a while. The last one I put out was quite a bit ago, and it was my Introduction to Risk Adjustment course, which I called the Why Risk Adjustment Coders Are Making More Money course, which is very true. Risk adjustment coders are, according to the salary surveys, making more money than professional coders. So that webinar for the free CEU dives into that. So I'm looking to do also a free CEU just for modifiers to say thank you to everyone and give back to the community for some free CEUs for some continuing education units. So I just want to say, because I'm just going to wrap things up here unless I see any more questions coming in, thank you all so much, and I really do appreciate everyone who continue to come in, and I see some of these great names that come up all of the time, like my buddies Marissa and Sino, and I'm just so glad to see you all coming back and commenting, and I know there's going to probably be an uptick coming soon because everyone's going back to colleges and classes, and people are concerned about the risk adjustment, concerned about the different types of coding and their instructors, and are looking for some supportive material and going onto YouTube and finding me, which I absolutely love. Oh, Jenny's asking, risk adjustment coders only work half of the year. Right, it really depends. There is some influxes depending on carriers that if they're looking for certain contracts when they're trying to submit certain data, it might be just a contract position. So there are other risk adjustment positions, and there's a lot more opening up right now though on the healthcare provider and organization side, because they want to make sure that they are getting the right payments for the provider, for the organization, based off of those value-based metrics and quality payment programs. There's a lot more contracts being written right now with our commercial insurances that the providers are getting bonuses, getting incentives, getting increases if they have those patients that have those high risk adjustment scores. So more providers and healthcare organizations are hiring risk adjustment coders to look at that and actually do more provider education and talking to them about, like, okay, if you have diabetes, but you documented a more specified diabetes that would have better supported a higher risk score, you would have maybe gotten some more money there. So someone's asking, when am I online for chat? So I can only live chat periodically, so I'm maybe once a month going to be doing a live stream, and I'll be posting on both my Instagram, my LinkedIn, and my YouTube community when I'll be available for those live chats. Tony says, thank you so much for the time and the information that you share with all of us. Great. And if you have any or know of any coding students that are coming on, feel free to send them over to the channel, because it's been so helpful and it's been great to see all the comments from the coding students that are finding me. And just, the content is reaffirming that they made the right choice getting into medical coding and helping answer some of their questions that they have in regards to the industry and job opportunities and how to get involved and how to get ahead. So with that, I just want to say thank you everyone for coming today. And again, I'm really excited. I'm hoping to get those CPC classes up by early October at the latest. Like I said, it's a lot of work that I'm going to have to put into it to get them up and running. But be on the lookout, and thank you so much. Thank you everyone. I appreciate all of you coming in today, and I will see you on the next live stream.